So you've done all the hard work now. You've created this dress, you've built it piece by piece, stitched it together, applied it to the character, posed her, and then allowed the simulation to give you all the correct folds and creases. And from here, you can export that as an OBJ, as we did before, take it to another application, and then play around with texturing, shading, lighting, rendering, and all that sort of stuff. But there is a step you could take between Marvelous Designer and your choice of rendering application, and that is to maybe spend a bit more time tidying up the model, or maybe even enhancing it. So what I'm going to do now is just very quickly go over a few little tweaks you can do in ZBrush or another sculpting application of your choice. But let's look at the mesh first. So here we have, this is brought straight from Marvelous Designer as an OBJ, just imported into here. If we turn on the polyframe, we can see all those lovely triangles there. Now, as you're probably aware, triangles are never good, especially in a sculpting application like this. If we tried to subdivide this further, we'd end up with all sorts of issues with the topology of the surface. Now obviously we're in ZBrush, so we could always just go to Geometry, ZRemesher, and we could ZRemesh it. Now that will work its way through and it will convert it all to quads, clean up the model nicely. But the downside with that is you will lose your UVs. So as you can see there, that's just very quickly converted this nicely into quads. Now the density isn't correct, so we could just undo that. Let's just change this so the polygon count is the same. I'm not going to go into details about how to use ZRemesher and all the other tools. This isn't a ZBrush tutorial. But yeah, let's just click that to same. Let's click ZRemesh again. Now this may take slightly longer. Just let this work through. But yeah, this will increase the density of those quads. And again, like I say, we will lose the UVs. There are steps that you can take. Once you've got your ZRemeshed model, you can import it into Maya with the original model that's triangulated, and you can transfer the UVs from one model to another. Now it will give you a kind of an okay result, but you will end up with patches of the model, particularly where areas overlap around here, where the UV transfer won't work as well. So then you'll end up having to do more cleanup. Now this is really nearly done. So there we go. So look at that, that's a much nicer, clean mesh. Like I say, we've got this lovely mesh now, but the downside is we've lost the UV. So like I say, you could export this into Maya and use the transfer attributes tool. That will give you some of the UVs of the original. You could always export this piece by piece and then transfer the UVs bit by bit. But that's just an option if you really want to, if you have ZBrush and you really want to clean up your mesh, you could use ZRemesher. That'll give you a very nice quad surface, a little bit of playing around with UVs in Maya, but that just gives you a much nicer mesh. Now, I'm just going to undo that. I'm talking about quads and turning this into quads, and in the next release of Marvelous Designer, they will be introducing quad support, and I'm lucky enough to have a preview release of that where you can export as quads. The problem is if I select this model, so this is the one exported as quads. Now, it's okay, but it's nowhere near as nice as the ZBrush remeshed version. As you can see, we've got all sorts of issues around here. What we ideally want is a topology nice and clean. Now, this is just a beta build of the Marvelous Designer, so I'm hoping when we come closer to release, they'll clean up that issue and you'll be able to export with quads laid out as nicely as you can get from ZBrush using ZRemesher. So that's just a preview of what's to come. Let's go back to our triangulated mesh. That's the quad, there we go. So what else could we do while we're in ZBrush? Let's just turn off the polyframe. We could just bring it in, and some of these creases, I mean, obviously we can bring it in and we could use a standard brush or whatever brush you want and smooth this out by hand and sculpt in more creases. That's always an option. But another option is to go down to our deformation tab and just use some of these options here: polish, polish by features, and relax. And all this will do is, if we, I think that just did that then. As you can see, if we just set that to 1, that just goes over and has just smoothed out the whole surface. And it just makes it look a little bit nicer. Yes, we're going to lose some of those hard edges, but you could always go in and paint back in the ones that you need. If I just undo that, you can see the difference there. Now, this little circle here, again, I'm not going to go into details about what these tools do, but the little circle, if it's open, it will apply the polished and try and maintain the overall form of the tool. A closed circle, like that, will try and smooth out the tool without worrying too much about the volume. If we set that to 5, so as you can see, just using that polish has softened it quite a lot. Now again, it comes down to personal preference. You might not like this, that. You might not want to bother with any of this ZBrush stuff and just use the model exactly as it is. But this is just an option. Like I say, you could Z-remesh it to get it nicely quadded. You can use some of these tools here just to maybe use relax, just to soften those really harsh edges that you're getting there. You can even go in and just sculpt in more details and then export that back out as an OBJ, you know, and just there's your dress enhanced. So, like I say, this was just a very quick overview of just what you could do using ZBrush after you've got your model exported. Like I say, there is quad support coming in a future release of Marvelous Designer. I'm hoping that they clean up the topology for that, but I guess we'll just wait and see. But for now, you know, this is always an option for you to play around with the dress even more, clean it up, enhance it as much as you like, and then you can take that into your application of choice and yeah, just get that ready for rendering. So I think this is the point where we'll probably leave working on the dress, and yeah, what we'll do is in the next few videos is look at some of the other elements of Marvelous Designer which we haven't had a chance to cover or touch upon.